Good evening, everyone. Once again, it is I, your brother Demetrius Knuckleseal, the Great Minds Project 5.0 presents No Longer a Slave to Fear. And now let me give you just a little insight on why I chose this title. And I want us to really understand the significance of this title, the significance of this moment, the significance of our intelligence, our rights, our human rights, our civil rights, our God-given rights. I want us as a people, no matter the race, color, creed, to understand that we're living in a moment in time where discrimination, segregation, gentrification, and dehumanization of a people is going on rapid right before our eyes, and we don't recognize it. But I'm telling you, in this moment of time, we must open our eyes, stand up so we could see what's going on. We have Richard Bernstein. I'm sure everyone heard of the Bernstein advantage. Yes, he's from that family tree. We have Richard Bernstein, whom many of my constituents, including myself, fought to get elected as Michigan Supreme Court Justice. We fought to get him elected. We knocked on doors. We created flyers. We advocated, promoted, walked around and talked about, encouraged people to see that the best vote to be cast with respect to Supreme Court candidates was Richard Bernstein and Kyra Harris Bowden. Mind you, Richard Bernstein is from the Sam Bernstein family tree. Kyra Bowden came from virtual poverty, the same poverty that so many of my listeners know so well. She came from that poverty to rise in the ranks of law enforcement, not as police, not as anything like that, but in that field of criminal justice. And here she is, decided to run for Michigan Supreme Court Justice. That was a bold move. This is Pound, bold action. Pound, stand for bold action. Pound, second chances, Michigan. Listen, understand what I'm saying and understand where I'm going, because this ain't about her. It ain't about me. It's about all of us, because the wrong that was committed, the lynching that was committed on her, has been being done against us for far too long. Richard Bernstein, he chose his words very carefully, and I'm not going to mince them. I'm going to take you to the word that he used to describe Justice Bowden's decision making. I'm going to take you to the decision. I'm going to share my screen with you. Listen, this is some disgusting stuff. I used the very word that he said he used against Kyra Bowden, because when she did not win her election outright to become Supreme Court Justice. So myself and so many organizations petitioned the governor to appoint Kyra Bowden to the Michigan Supreme Court because she was such a perfect fit. And there has never been a woman of African descent on the Michigan Supreme Court. So this would be the first. This would be the first. So we petitioned the governor, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she appointed Kyra Bowden as the Supreme Court Justice. She became the first woman of African descent to sit on the Michigan Supreme Court. What does that mean? Why it's so important? First of all, because we still haven't the first time we did this, the first time we did that, and we live it in 2023. But nonetheless, that's another topic to discuss at a later date. So here it is. This young sister became victorious even in the face of adversity when she didn't win the vote count to be elected into the Michigan Supreme Court. She didn't win the vote count, but she won the hearts and minds of the people. And not just because she was of African descent, but because her credibility, because her character, because her worth, because she left her footprints clearly cut so all can see and be assured that she went that way. She is the truth. She did this. Her record precedes her. But when she became appointed by Gretchen Whitmer to the Michigan Supreme Court as a Supreme Court Justice, the one person who was running with her in the race the whole time, who people like us from Michigan Liberation and Safe and Just Michigan and MySemi and so many other grassroots and nonprofit organizations, we supported these two. Richard Bernstein, Kyra Bowden Harris for Michigan Supreme Court, and they supported one another. They got pictures, many pictures of them together, fighting and campaigning and stuff. Many of them. It was a proud moment that we were about to see a woman of African descent stand up against a wall of Caucasian men and women, against a legacy of Caucasian men and women. She was standing up to run for the highest court office in the state. So naturally, because her record preceded her, because we don't care who she is if her record does not stand for what she say for what she stands for, but because her record preceded her and she was such a kind-hearted, genuine, down-to-earth and understanding individual who'd been through the trials and tribulations and rose to the occasion and rose to a moment in time to where she became the first woman of African descent that could be sitting on the Michigan Supreme Court. And she has impartiality, which is so needed. Let me tell you something, y'all. The Michigan Supreme Court is the highest court in Michigan. That means that if you know someone who is incarcerated, or yourself have been incarcerated, and they have been going through the court to try to give some of that life bit back or that time back, they was trying to show the people that I was wrong. I did not have a fair trial. Once they go through the trial court, that trial court level, then the Court of Appeals level, the last step is the Supreme Court. So once they say what they say, it's over with, unless you can find some other issue to come back through the courts on. So we need people up there that's impartial, people that's, despite the sea of Caucasian faces, they will stand up if they see a person of minority come up there with a case that maybe they don't understand, but they're willing to listen. That's impartiality. They're willing to judge carefully. That's impartiality. They're willing to look at the justice and apply justice accordingly. That's impartiality. Those are the people that we need up there. So now this sister, Kyra Bowden, rose to the occasion. She said, I'm going to take my place where I'm supposed to be at because I know that I got what it takes to be an impartial decision maker on behalf of the people, because that's who's voting me in office, the people. That's who I'm representing, the people. Not some backdoor constituent, not some $1 million man, some $1 million woman, some $1 million organization. I come to represent the people. And let me be more clear. I come to represent the poor people, the people who ordinarily wouldn't have a shot. I come to be that voice of reason. I'm going to issue justice accordingly. If you're wrong, you're wrong. But if you're right, you're right. So, Gretchen Whitmer appointed this sister to the Michigan Supreme Court, the highest office in Michigan. And she appointed her to this office in Michigan. And this is, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what Richard Bernstein said. Not just what I don't want it to come out of my mouth. I want you to read, or I can read to you exactly what he said. The misogynistic, barbaric nonsense that he'd uttered from his lips about this sister's decision making. The same sister that was running with him and promoting him and advocating and campaigning and doing things on his behalf and her behalf because she knew it was bigger than her. Let me tell y'all something. Share my screen right quick. Check this out. All right, y'all. Let's see if we can get this in, man. Because this is some wicked stuff that's going on. And we got to wake up and recognize and not allow this nonsense that is Richard Bernstein to prevail in nothing that he do. As long as he think that he could say what he want to say, we're gonna put a stop to that. So this is the newspaper article. I hope you all could see it. I hope you all can see it. I hope I'm sharing my screen right. If I'm not sharing my screen right, please, I apologize. But I'm trying to get this thing up here so y'all can see. I'm trying to get it up on this screen so y'all can see it. And you ain't got to worry about just thinking that it's just me saying this. So if you cannot see the screen, can somebody please comment and let me know that you cannot see the screen, because I'm trying my best, y'all. I'm trying to deliver this message to y'all, man. It's so potent. Because otherwise, I just read the statement off that say news about Richard Bernstein's attack on Kyra Harris Bowden. Michigan Supreme Court Justice Bernstein apologizes to Justice Bowden over hiring. Justice Bernstein also apologized to Peter Martell, the court clerk who resigned after Bernstein made a public issue about his prior felony record. Now, let me tell you a little backdrop on Kyra Bowden Harris, y'all. Kyra Harris Bowden. Her great-grandfather was lynched. Oh, man. So let's go. We're gonna go down a little further. This is what the Bernstein guy said. He's issuing an apology because Kyra Bowden, upon being appointed as Michigan Supreme Court Justice, she appointed one of my friends named Peter Martell. She appointed him as her clerk. Peter Martell had a felony record from like almost 20 years ago. I'm not getting off into what his felony record was because it is of no issue, because it was 20 years ago. He has been to law school. He is as close to a legal genius as you could get right now. This man studied this stuff. This man went to school for it, went to law school, everything. He has proven himself that he's overcome the bad decisions that he made as a youth. He has overcome all of this and have done so much great and good in the neighborhoods and with the people, represented the people on every level. Now let me tell you, this is Richard Bernstein right here. I'm gonna go to it because this is some misogynistic backwoods bamboo lynching type stuff that he committed in the public's eye. And I hope y'all could see. I hope y'all can see this screen. I'm trying to get y'all to see this screen. This is some stuff right here, man. This is some stuff. Let me see. I'm gonna share this screen. That ain't the screen I want. Where's my screen? Because this is some sadistic stuff that's going on, y'all. And we got to pay attention because, you know, as Brother Durrell Woods said today at the press conference, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So listen. So I'm going to go Sam Bernstein. I'm going to just read it because I don't know if you all can see my screen. No one has chimed in yet. So it says, an ex-convict who was hired by a new justice at the Michigan Supreme Court resigned Thursday after harsh criticism from another member of the court. It says, I have accepted Pete Martell's resignation, said Justice Kyra Harris Bowden, who took office Sunday after being appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. He did not want to be a distraction or in any way divert the court from its important work. I respect his decision and do not intend to comment further. Bowden had hired Martell to serve as a law clerk, a job that includes researching cases and providing input on opinions, in which this man is a professional at. He has many, many years under his belt of doing this very work. It goes on to say Martell served 14 years in prison after robbing a Flint area store and shooting at police officers, the Detroit News reported. He was released in 2008, changed his life, and obtained a degree from Wayne State University Law School. Justice Richard Bernstein praised Martell's turnaround. Justice Bernstein praised Martell's turnaround, but said the Supreme Court shouldn't be his next step. I'm all about second chances, Bernstein told the News. But there are certain jobs you should never be allowed to have after you shoot at a police officer, and one of them is clerking for the highest court in the state. He added, I'm completely disgusted by this. You completely disgusted by this, huh? There was no comment from Martell. Court spokesman John Nevins said the court doesn't comment on personal matters. Former Chief Justice Bridget McCormick, who left the court this week, said Martell was one of her best students. This is the former Chief Justice Bridget McCormick said Martell was one of her best students when she taught at the University of Michigan. He's been open about his past and his regret about it, and how he's eager to be an example for others to show them that you don't have to be defined by your past, she said. Bowden finished third in an election for 2 seats on the court, but was subsequently selected by the governor to fill the vacancy caused by McCormick's departure. She is Michigan's first Black female justice. Bowden and Bernstein were nominees of the Democratic Party and appeared in campaign ads together in the fall. Bernstein easily won re-election to the court. I'm no longer talking to her. We don't share the same values, Bernstein said. Ain't that something? Ain't that something, y'all? Somebody help me. Somebody tell me that that's not a lot of baboon, backwoods lynching, barbaric, misogynistic garbage that he blew out his mouth. Somebody help me to understand, because maybe I'm seeing things different. Maybe I'm interpreting things different. I'm a human being. Am I wrong? Or is this man committing a public lynching of a woman of African descent right in our face? And let me give you a little backstory. And this is factual. Fact check me. Fact check me. When it came to campaigning when it came to needing help campaigning, Richard Bernstein's camp came to formerly incarcerated individuals, such as myself. I campaigned for him. He came to formerly incarcerated individuals and said, I need y'all help, because I understand that y'all are the greatest ground troops, the greatest articulators of this type of cause, especially in this era of time, that one will ever see. So he came to people like us, the formerly incarcerated, the people who he later called disgusting. He came to us and said he need our help. And some of us naive, some of us leaning on the reputation of his father, some of us being swayed by his manipulation, decided that we was going to help. So we went knocking on doors, making phone calls, text messaging people, made big posters and planted them on people's front lawns and stuff, and outside of storefronts. Excuse me, but it kind of reminded me of a story. How Cara Bowden supported this man, walked with this man. There are even pictures. Let me see if I can get back up in here. It's pictures of this man holding her child. If you all could see this picture, he's holding her child. He's holding her child. You know, here's a picture of this man holding her child. That's how close she felt they were. They were in the same fight. But no sooner than she got in office, Richard Bernstein exposed himself. He was likened to that snake aside on that sick snake that was along the side of the road that the woman picked up, took home, and nursed back into condition, and then the snake bit her, and she said, Mr. Snake, why you bite me? He said, you must forget I'm still a snake. But because we believe in second chances, we have a heart full of mercy. We believe in people, and we give people second chances all day, every day. So there was not a thought in her mind that he was this serpent, this snake. There was not a thought in her mind. The only thought in her mind was that we are about to change the landscape of criminal justice in Michigan. We are about to do our part and do our part the right way to apply justice for the citizens of Michigan. That was her thoughts. But his thoughts were all wrong. Because the tongue of the sincere is rooted in heart. Hypocrisy and deceit have no place in his words. Hypocrisy and deceit have no place in his words, because the tongue of the sincere is rooted in heart. Obviously, he was never sincere. Obviously, he was never sincere. He was never a genuine friend to her. He was never the sheep that he said he once was to us. He was that wolf in sheep's clothing. And he publicly lynched a woman of African descent in front of our face, likened to the slaves when the slave holders would take the women from the men, rape the women in front of the men, and if the women were pregnant, hang the woman upside down and cut the baby from her stomach and let the man see it. Let the whole community see it. So, Richard Bernstein, not only are we demanding an apology, not only are we demanding that you repent for your statements. Not only are we demanding that you publicly issue a direct appeal to the mercy of the people, a direct appeal to the mercy of the people for the lynching that you committed in the public side. We are demanding that Richard Bernstein donate funds from his own account, not some other account we wanted out your pocket, to an organization headed by women of African descent. We asking, we demanding that you have a sit down with these organizations like Michigan Liberation, Safe and Just Michigan, MySemi, American Friends Services Committee, Nation Outside, and any other organization that supported you. You have a sit down with us so we can express ourselves to you, so we could hear you and see you face to face. That's our demands. You have a sit down with us. We're not concerned. You're not no bigger than us. We don't care about your position as a Supreme Court justice. We're only concerned with the humanity of any individual that we come in contact with. You a human being like me. You owe us that. You owe us that. And we will collect our debt, either from the demands being met or your resignation. And if you don't want to resign, we'll keep it in mind for the next election cycle that we will ensure you won't be sitting up there. We will pool resources. You have just awakened a monster for real. You have committed an atrocity against a sacred gem. You have committed an atrocity against a sacred gem. That's the woman of African descent. And we're not going to forget that. We're not going to forget that. I'm not going to hold my listeners up too much longer. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to keep it real clean. Richard Bernstein, you are of Jewish descent. Generations behind you suffered the Holocaust. The trauma of that Holocaust still lives today. The memory of that Holocaust still lives today, and rightfully so. The pain, the hurt, the missing of our families, the breaking up of our families are things that we'll never forget. Not knowing, not ever being alive at a time to see the grandparents because they were killed during the Holocaust. See, as a people, we sympathize with you. We sympathize with you. Because we lost over 100 million African people over 100 million African people to so-called white supremacy, misogyny, barbarism, genocides. So we understand it. And what I'm telling you, Richard Bernstein, is if you want us to ever think of you in any humane way, even in the minutest of main ways, I think you should meet our demands. Because if you don't, you won't sit in that seat anymore. Because we're going to make sure that you unseated. Peace and love to those within the sound of my voice, but those who cannot hear the sound of my voice, I say pass along the message, because someone needs to be inspired.